Um, there it is. Awesome, good. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Marina Zucchini. I know, funny last name. And I live in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I am PowerToFly's career coach. So among everything we do at PowerToFly, we also have a career coaching service and as many others to try to provide as many tools as possible for everyone that is looking to advance and grow in their careers. We're having regularly these discussions that are free for our community and hopefully will help solve some doubts that people have when they are in front of searching for a new job, having interviews, preparing their resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn. So we cover all of that. Today, we're going to be focusing on interview prep, which is something that I think most of people get nervous about. And I can understand why. It takes a lot of practice. So hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions. I got really cool questions. But before starting with that, I want to go over some housekeeping rules. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, these are live events. So this one, as you heard, it's being recorded, but you can still get on camera. So I appreciate knowing that you are there and I'm not just talking to a screen. So anytime you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, or hey, I'm glad when I can see other faces. So thanks. Feel free to turn off or on your cameras as you want. I have some questions, so I'll be answering those, but also if you want to give or ask more questions, you can unmute yourself or also use the chat function where you can write your question for everyone to see, or if you prefer to remain anonymous, you can write a private message to me directly and I won't say your name. And what else? And then if you're not yet following us on socials, we are all over social media. I encourage you to follow us so that you can keep track of all these amazing events we do, not just this one, but we do a lot of other ones that are probably even better, with a lot of very talented speakers that can help you with a lot of different things, people from different companies, and a lot of different topics. You can also go online and visit our past events. Most of them remain recorded and you can access them as well. So with that being said, let's start. Hi, everyone. I have, as mentioned, everyone, when you all registered, I'm sorry I have the sun in front of me and it looks, I'm striped, but if let's see if this is better. So I look funny with all the, okay, that's better. I love the sun, but it gets to my eyes. So I have a lot of questions that everyone submitted when you registered. So I will start with those. I think they are great questions. They're not in any particular order, just as how they came. So if you want to re-ask something, or if I'm addressing your question and I didn't understand what you meant or anything, feel free to get to me either on the phone, not on the phone, well, you can call me, but unmute yourself or just write it down in the chat, okay? So let's start. The first one I got is, how can we create that first good, it says food impression, but I guess it means good impression. What catches the recruiter's attention? That's a nice opening question. So, I mean, recruiters are people too, so it all depends. There are a lot of different ways to catch another person's attention, and it will depend a lot on who you have on the other side. So also of course you won't know beforehand who is the person that's going to be interviewing you, but you can do your research on the company. If you already know the name of the person, you can also find them online. LinkedIn, Glassdoor are great tools to find people and companies. And also I think that a good tip I can give you to get anyone's attention is to show that you're interested. I know it sounds sometimes obvious, but there are people that prefer not to show that much how interested they are because they think it might turn someone off. And on the contrary, it's great when you see someone on the other side as a recruiter. Oh, sorry, I didn't say much about me. So besides being career coach here. I've been in recruiting for almost 20 years. So everything I know is not just from helping others, but I've been on the other side of the table as well, and currently still interview people a lot. I love interviews. So I hope that what I can tell you is going to be of value. So as I was saying, I think that one great tip about when you're presenting yourself to an interview is to show that you're interested and show that you are invested in that opportunity in particular, and not that you're just interviewing wherever you get a chance, but that you've done your research, you know who you have on the other side, you know the company, you've heard or read things about them. So anything that you can bring up about, hey, I read in the news that you're doing this and that, or I read in the job description that this is a new role or opening a new office. I don't know, certain things that are attractive to you. I think those are typically good openers, and you can get someone's attention doing that. You don't need to do any crazy stuff, and then just be yourself. Never be afraid of being yourself, and that's, I think, that kind of a bottom line advice I can give to everyone, because if you really are picturing yourself in a company for the long term, you want to make sure that you feel comfortable with who you are and others know who you are, and there's always going to be a good match where you like the company and the company likes you. So never be afraid of being yourself. I hope that answered the question. Then I'm going to be checking the chat at the same time. Thank you for having this Zoom chat. Find your lady students. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Ed. If you feel the interview is not going as planned, what's the best way to reverse it, especially during technical interviews? I like that question. That's brave of someone to ask. I think that always being honest and with yourself, and of course then with the recruiter or the person that's interviewing you. So all of us can have days in which we are not 100% focused. Every time when you're in an interview, you try to be as present as possible in that situation, paying attention to what's happening and try to have your mind focused on that. If you are having troubles at home or whatever things are going on, try to leave them behind, at least for that little while, so that you can give your most and be focused on what's going on. And sometimes it can happen that you're being asked things that throw you off your game. So it's always good it's always okay if you need some time to think before providing an answer. I think it's always better to say, let me think about this, give me 2 seconds, and say that you're thinking about it and really think about that, other than just feel ashamed of what's going on. Because we're not an open book all the time. We don't need to, we're not expected to know everything. So we might need a few minutes or seconds to think of something before saying so. If you feel like the interview is going to a direction where you're not feeling comfortable, or you definitely have no idea what they're talking about, which shouldn't happen that much. Typically when someone goes into an interview, if the recruiter or the hiring manager did their job, their homework, they will be spending their time interviewing someone they feel does have the skills that they're looking for. So at some point there should be an alignment between what you know, what they saw in your resume. That's why they called you for an interview. I don't think anyone's going to want to waste anyone's time, not yours, not theirs. So there should be, but still, it might happen that they know what you're looking for and they suddenly decide to ask you about a new technology or a new skill that wasn't listed in the job description and maybe you don't have. So it's perfectly okay if you have no idea what they're talking about. You can tell them that. You say, like, I am very well versed in this and that, but I'm not too familiar with this technology. I wouldn't mind learning if that's needed, in case, of course, you are, or anything you've heard about it. You can always make any type of comment about that specific thing they are asking, if you've heard of that before. And if you haven't, it's always also good and fine to ask, like, oh, I haven't heard of that before. Is that a new technology for this and that? I'd love to learn more about it. So there are always ways into trying to keep the flow of the conversation and avoid getting stuck or froze or feeling ashamed or whatever can happen there. Like, try to keep the flow of the conversation, I think is bottom line advice there. Let me go back. Question: advice with obtaining a position I thrived in instead of always just pushed into a position just to get my foot on the door. I thought I could be myself at the company, but the interview, looking back, went not as good as I had hoped. Oh, with obtaining a position I thrive instead of always get. Sorry, being capable, the position applied for, or other similar positions which I can do, I always leave feeling my time was wasted, or with the other companies never even given an actual chance. Um, I'm sorry that that has been your experience. I don't think I quite understand the question there. If you want to, I'm sorry, if you want to come off mute or just type it again, whatever you prefer, I'm happy to help. Okay. Well, you can go back to that. I can continue with the questions, and please let me know if you can rephrase or ask what I understand. That what I understand is that you mean that you're called for interviews that probably are not the match for the role you would like to, but other different ones. That might happen. Typically, as I was saying, I think people will call you in for an interview if they feel you're a fit for the role they're looking for. Of course, there are other situations in which a company might call you in for an interview because they are interested in your background without knowing exactly what role might be a good fit for you. And those are, I think, are great meetings where you have a lot more chance of saying what is it that you are strong in. If you've done your research before and you know the type of roles or the areas, the teams they have, you can propose yourself for those. Like, you can say, I've been doing this and that, but I see that you have teams that are focused on this and that, and I'd love to be part of that because I think that my experience here and there would be transferable or applicable or of value for this and that certain position. So you can put yourself out there and say what is it that you know and what that you like to do and that you hope to do next in your career. And that, I mean, you're helping the recruiter find a good place for you in their company. Okay, so let me go back to the other question. I worked as a software developer and I'm looking to re-enter the workforce after a long break. Any advice? What's the best way to address this break during the interview? Well, probably as you've heard so far, I'm very pro being honest and transparent. I think that's the best thing you can do. So if someone is calling you for an interview, they have already seen your resume or your LinkedIn profile. So very likely they already know you have a gap. So it's not a mystery and you don't have to feel bad or upset or whatever because of that. They already know. So don't be nervous. They might want to know why, maybe, but it's not that you're going to be breaking a big news to them that they haven't realized before. If they took the time to read your resume before, they already know that you are, I mean, if you were clear in your resume that you've been freelancing or that you had contractor roles and now you're here after a while, they might want to know why, and why is it that you are now looking for a full-time role or a permanent position, and you probably have that in mind. I mean, you already know why, so that's what you should say. Like, I know I've been freelancing for many years, but now I'm looking for a full-time role because I want more stability, or whatever the reason is. That's the way of addressing it, saying what is it that you're looking for and why you feel that this opportunity is the right next step for you because of what your career goals are. So that's important. And I think it's always good, and never be ashamed of saying what are your career goals, and make sure that those are aligned to what you understand they are looking for. You might then get a surprise, and sometimes the job descriptions are not very clear. Maybe you get called for an interview and you don't know exactly all the details, and that's what the interview is about. Like, both of you getting to know each other, you learning more about the company and what is it they're looking for, and them knowing about you. So everyone needs to be like, share as much information as possible to try to match what they're looking for. I mean, you don't need to disclose your entire life, But certainly, if you get asked and you have an answer for that, then go ahead and give that answer. You don't need to be super detailed into your intimate life, but just address the career goals that you have and why you feel those are a match for this position that you are being interviewed for. I hope that answered the question. Um, if you already have a job when interviewing and they ask, why do you want to leave that current job? Is answering a lack of growth and career pathing within the position a good response? Yes. I mean, every response would be okay if that's what's going on. I think there's, of course, certain ways of phrasing things and saying those. Like, for example, if the reason is that you don't like the company and you're not comfortable working there, I don't recommend that you start talking badly about the company or about your boss, like with adjectives or giving too many examples, but you can definitely say, after this amount of time, I realized that the company's culture is not what I feel comfortable with, or the team wasn't what I expected. And you explain why. Like, never victimize yourself or blame others. I think that's also a good advice. Like, try to, like, you took the role because there was something that was attractive for you at that time. And then it's perfectly fine that you didn't find what you thought you were going to find there, or that your interests change, and you thought that role was going to give you the opportunity to grow into a leadership position, and then after being there for, I don't know, a year, you realize that there are no opportunities for people that have less than X amount of years of experience. Like, there might be things that you realize. It's always better to phrase them in a way where you acknowledge your decision, the decision that you made. You learned something from the experience that you lived, and now you're ready to make another decision that will take you to the goal or the target that you're looking for in your career. So um, you saw, I mean, it's I don't think it's good to say like they don't have opportunities for anyone, because you might have already known that before you started working there. But maybe you thought things, or they said, or you heard things were in a certain way, and then after X amount of time working there, you realize that that's not really how they work, and there's very little movement to move up if that's what you're looking for. And then, of course, you can explain what is that growth or that career path that you would be excited about, and try to make sure that this new company and this new role will provide that to you, so that you don't go again through the same situation where you get stuck, or feel that you're stuck, or feel frustrated. Good. Hope that was answered. Let me know otherwise. Let's see, we have any other question, Ed? Is this a new one? I have freelancing experience essentially with project management in some senses, but always put in labor positions. Don't mind working my way up, but a lot of HR managers, it seems my life experience is always overlooked. There's also, I think that another important thing when you are looking for a job, so before you get the interview, try to really apply for jobs where you really see yourself working. Like, try to make that job, don't apply to anything. If you are interested in one company and you don't see, and you really want to work in that company for some reason, and you don't see any roles that are applicable to your experience or to what you would like to do, there are other ways in which you can connect with that company. Maybe through LinkedIn, network with people already working there, go to job fairs or career fairs where they are presenting or talking, where you can engage on a one-on-one or more directly with them, and let them know that you're interested in them, but you haven't yet found a position for you. I think that's more productive than just applying to anything, because they might, like, if you are a senior manager and they're looking for an analyst, and they see someone with your background for a more junior role, and they see that you applied, they will probably assume that you are open to doing a job that's below your current experience, because otherwise you wouldn't have applied. So if they are calling you anyway, they would probably assume that you would be okay with that position. But if you're not, then just don't apply to jobs that you feel are going to be where you're going to be overqualified, or where you feel that you're not going to be valued, or the experience that you bring is not exactly what they're looking for. You might just either write to them and let them know that you'd love to work with them in this type of roles, which are the ones that you would prefer, or just wait and keep track of them. There are now a lot of different ways, like every job board has alerts where you can keep track of whenever they apply, they post a new role that might be more suitable for what you're looking for, so that you don't waste your time and you don't waste the other person's time. Like if you're a senior manager and go to a meeting as an analyst, and you start the meeting by saying, I know this role is an analyst, but I want to be a senior manager. Okay, we don't have a senior manager open right now. So, I mean, you can still talk to them, and they might have you in mind for when they open a role, but that might not be exactly not everyone will have the good demeanor to tell you that. Maybe they would just say, hey, I don't want to waste my time, and I'll give you a call later. So it's better to wait and really apply to the job that you feel is right for you. Hope that answered. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Great. So let me get back to the questions. What's the best way to describe our strengths as a collaborator during the interview? Good question. So I think throughout all the interview, there are a lot of different situations in which you're always like, throughout all the interview, besides what you are saying and the questions that you're being asked, there are a lot of other ways that you can show your value or your skills. Like your communication style is not, maybe they're not going to ask you, so what's your communication style? But they are talking to you, so they're going to see your communication style in the way in which you address the questions that are being asked. So there are certain things that that are at play during an interview besides the actual questions being asked. So they might ask you for a specific question about your strengths. And if they don't, there are a lot of other ways in which you can talk about those strengths without actually being asked about them. So, for example, it's very likely that at any point in the interview, regardless the exact question they are going to ask, they want to know either what you're currently doing or something about your past experience. I mean, they're probably going to ask you to describe and to tell more about what is it that you're good at. So I think a good way of phrasing that is try always to be prepared in advance with a couple of examples of accomplishments that you've had in previous roles, projects that you are proud of, or any type of achievement that you think is relevant for the role that you're applying to, and try to have that, like remember of that before going to the interview, so that you don't need to spend a lot of time thinking. And always remember that when you talk about a specific situation, or you give an example about your about a past experience, you always tell what was your involvement there. Like I was working in this role, I did this, I was responsible for doing that, worked with a team, and we achieved this and that. And thanks to, like, I was good at organizing, so the project was submitted on time and within budget, or whatever the situation is. But you have a way of thinking in advance things that you're proud of. Always adding a little bit of data, of metrics, helps to the recruiter or the hiring manager to have an understanding of exactly what was your contribution to that achievement. I think that's a good way of showing your strengths without just saying a list of all your qualities. Like if you go to an interview, say, I'm organized, I'm detail-oriented, I'm this, and that, you need examples to show that. So it's better to just focus on maybe 2 skills or 2 abilities, but provide, give them with a context, with an example of how those skills or abilities were applied in a successful way, of course. Great. Then when applying for a job in a new industry, what's the best way to sell our non-traditional background for that position? Um, that's a great question. And I know that more and more, a lot of people are um, changing industries and making moves with maybe within the industry on different teams. So it's perfectly fine. As said before, if someone is calling you for an interview, they already saw your resume, they already saw your LinkedIn profile or something. So they already know that you come from a different background. So it's not going to be a surprise for them that you have a different experience to the one they're looking for. Probably if they call you in for an interview, is because they like that you have that diverse background. So you have to take that as a value for your interview. Like never assume it's going to be something bad. On the contrary, assume it's good that you have that diverse background. Probably is something that they are interested in. So that's what you need to say. Like, yeah, I do come from this or other industry. I've done this and that in the past. And what I believe is transferable to this position is that I learned how to do this, and this, and I think would be very well applicable for this role. And I think I would succeed in this and this task because of what I've done before. So of course, it's important that you read the job description before and you know exactly what they're looking for, and think in advance before going to the interview. What are the things of your career that you've done so far that you believe are relevant or that can be transferable to this new industry? And that's what you want to point out and highlight during the interview. So it's perfectly fine if you have a non-traditional background. I think more and more now companies are starting to realize that non-traditional backgrounds are probably better for many positions because they can bring a new perspective on things. You can bring in a new way of seeing things. Like I'm currently working with a finance company, for example, and they like people that not necessarily come from having worked in the finance industry for many years, because they can bring in new perspectives. They find new ways of solving problems which probably weren't taught in the university. They can be transferred from having worked in research or in other areas. So I think that, yeah, that's a good value that you have if you have a non-traditional background. Oh my God, we only have 2 more minutes. Let me try to go to 2 questions. Yeah, ideally. What would you recommend doing when you don't understand a question being asked? Any advice to avoid brain freeze? Well, I think this is similar to the one I said, another question asked before. It's okay to pause and ask for a minute to think. And always, if you feel you're going to be stuck, always another good way is to ask a question to answer the question, so that it gives you more time. I mean, it gives you more time to think of what you really want to say and organize your ideas. But otherwise, just asking for a few seconds to think of an answer, it's good. And if you didn't understand what they're asking, of course, re-ask. It's perfectly fine. You don't need to know everything. And then the other question, okay, last minute. Any tip for salary negotiation? Okay, good. Always find this the most difficult part. I know it's difficult. One thing that I want always have in mind, talking about money is not only difficult for the the person interviewing, but also for the one interviewing. Typically, recruiters hate to ask about salary because it's uncomfortable. We don't like to know. I mean, we don't need to know exactly how much money you want. It's not us that are going to pay you. So keep in mind that if you feel a bit uncomfortable, the recruiter probably will feel a bit uncomfortable as well, and that's fine. So one good way of addressing that is, first of all, do your research before the interview. Try to understand what that role in that location, in that industry is paying. Like you have Glassdoor, there pay scale. There are a lot of tools online that can give you a rough idea. And if you are hesitant, you don't need to say how much you're making today. You probably will just need to say how much you're expecting. A safe way is always talking to a range instead of saying just one number. You can say a range, and you can say, I'm doing my research and I understand that these type of roles in these locations are probably between this and that. That will be okay with me. If you're open to negotiation, of course, say it. And lastly, if there are any benefits or perks that you know that company offers and they are important to you, that's also good to say, so that they know that you're not just there for the money, but that you also know that, I don't know, I know that you provide, I don't know, X medical insurance or whatever you think it's important to you, and you know the company is offering, you can always say that's something that you value. They will be happy. I mean, they would feel less pressed to offer a certain amount of money if they know that you're interested in the package itself and not just the number. So that's my advice. And we're over for 1 minute. I tried to, I told you that I talked a lot and fast, so I hope you were able to get what you were looking for. If you have more questions, there are a couple more questions that I didn't get to answer today, but we are going to do this again next month, probably. If it's not on interviewing, it's going to be on resumes or LinkedIn, so keep tuned. And also, if any of you is looking for personalized advice on interviewing, and you need a session on career coaching for interview preps, you can find me here. I'm putting it in the chat. In that link, you'll see all the services we offer. Feel free to book me and we can have a one-on-one chat to explore further, okay? Well, thank you all so much for your time. It was a pleasure to be here, and I hope to see you again soon. Okay. Bye.